The Arizona Wildcats beat the Washington State Cougars. Final score, Arizona Wildcats 79 to the Washington State Cougars 64. Um, it was something that I saw um, was Hawkinson right off the bat. Um, that was something that that everyone's been mentioning. You know, the coaches and the players and the fans and things like that have been saying Hawkinson for Washington State is somebody to watch out for. Hawkinson is forward 6'10". Um, so Anderson was that was kind of Anderson's job to take care of Hawkinson, to try and shut Hawkinson down a little bit and to limit his scoring ability. I don't remember how many points Hawkinson had last time that the Arizona Wildcats played Washington State. I think he had 8 or something like that. I'm not quite sure. But on this game, Hawkinson had 14 points. And Anderson was able to, he was able to defensively shut Hawkinson down after the first half. Because the first half, Hawkinson, you look at Anderson and his defensive breakdowns, that's all that they was pretty much Hawkinson. He had 4 defensive breakdowns, I think, or 3. I think it was 4. Well, I can't remember, but I think it was 3. But anyway, so Anderson, you know, all of his defensive breakdowns were against Hawkinson, and some of them were, you know, the outside three-pointers, and Anderson doesn't like to jump too much out when he's getting outside of the perimeter. So that was kind of a little bit understandable. Hawkinson is a good three-point shooter for Washington State. But the one thing that was interesting about Hawkinson is Hawkinson had 17 rebounds total, which is a heck of a lot of rebounds. Heck of a lot of rebounds. But then, you know, if you take things into consideration, I mean, Tollefson had 10 rebounds. Tarczewski had 10 rebounds, I think. And Anderson had 12 rebounds. I think Anderson had three of those 12 rebounds were offensive. So, and the rest of the team, I think Tollefson or Tarczewski only had 1 offensive rebound. So I do want the U of A to increase their offensive rebounds a little bit more. And you know, an interesting thing is the U of A only out-rebounded Washington State by 5. Now, Washington State had 40 rebounds, total rebounds, and Arizona Wildcats had 40 rebounds. So that was interesting. There was only five rebound difference. It was kind of unexpected, I guess. But in the second half, that was kind of when Hawkinson went downhill. He could not. I mean, he scored, I think, 14 points in the first half, and that was all the points that Hawkinson scored. In the second half, they pretty much, Hawkinson wasn't really a factor at all, and that's kind of when Anderson kind of came alive. Anderson had 31 points for the game, which is I think that was a game high for him on any team. So that was pretty nice. 31 total points. But the person that the Washington State players that did come alive in the second half, that did kind of step up, were Johnson, um, and Rebu, Ike Rebu, for Washington State Cougars. Um, you know, uh, you know, Gabe York had 4 defensive breakdowns, or 5, actually 5. I think 5 defensive breakdowns. 4 of those defensive breakdowns were against Ike Irebu. And it wasn't necessarily a size difference or anything like that. Um, and I looked at who Irebu was, who was defending against Irebu in the first half, and that was Johnson. Johnson was defending him a little bit in the first half. Um, Parker Jackson-Cartwright seemed to be a good person on Irebu to kind of stop Irebu from scoring, because Irebu was fast, and I think he's a little bit too fast for um, Gabe York, and I think that's what happened. I think because Gabe York um, couldn't catch him sometimes, couldn't get in between him and the basket sometimes, and so Ike Rebu was able to dribble, penetrate, and Johnson had he had Tollefson on him, and Johnson started to come alive in the second half. In the beginning of the second half, Tollefson had 3 defensive breakdowns, I think, and 2 of those defensive breakdowns were against Johnson for the Washington State Cougars. Johnson is 6'5", and Tollefson is I think 6'10". So so Tollefson should have been able to defend against him, but if Irebu dribble penetrated, which I think he did, then that was a little bit too fast for Tollefson, and so that's why I think Tollefson had those breakdowns, and it was really nasty right in the end, because York had 3 total defensive breakdowns against Irebu right at the end, and otherwise I don't think Washington State would have scored any more points after 10 minutes in the second half. But I think York was getting really, really tired, and I don't think he could defend against Irebu. I was thinking that it was because Allen fouled out, for the Arizona Wildcats fouled out, but and that's why maybe he was defending against Irebu, and whenever he fouled out, then he couldn't defend against Irebu anymore, and so Gabe York was defending against Irebu, but it was pretty much Gabe York that was defending against Irebu pretty much most of the game. So that wasn't the loss of Allen Kadeem Allen for the Arizona Wildcats didn't make a difference really on the defense of Irebu. So anyway, I'm as far as what we can learn from this game, the Arizona Wildcats only had 9 turnovers, which is fantastic, because I think the last game against Oregon, they had 19 turnovers, so they did much better on limiting their amount of turnovers. I think Anderson had 2 turnovers, and Tarczewski had 4 total turnovers. So that was kind of nasty part of it. But hopefully Tarczewski can pick up his game a little bit more and take care of the ball and make more crisp passes and take care of the ball and pass the ball consistently. I was noticing that there was one really nasty breakdown for Tarczewski, and one of the Washington State players got it, and a turnover, and was able to slam it. So it was no big deal at all. But anyway, so hopefully Tarczewski can pick up his game a little bit more. But so I think we had 2 for 4 from Tollefson and 2 for 6 from York. Hopefully our guys can pick up their defense a little bit more, and get some definitely out rebound the Washington when we play them on Saturday. So I think that's an important thing, and keep the turnovers down to try hopefully keep them down to less than 10 turnovers, which would be fantastic. That's about it. The Arizona Wildcats beat the Washington State Cougars. The final score: Arizona Wildcats 79 to the Washington State Cougars 64.